Well, good morning. How the devil are we? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. We are actually on live today. We're live on LinkedIn. I can't believe it. Yeah, talk about that in a minute. First of all, guys, for those people who don't know me, my name's Nigel Mann. I host basically Wednesday, our usual show on a Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. Hospitality Hints, where I speak to industry specialists, people that basically, work in the industry and go to my fictitious hotel. Today I'll be knocking on the door of Robin Williams in finance. So we're talking about finance today. That's what we're talking about. For those people who want to get hold of me, LinkedIn basically is on the screen there. So just go into Nigel Mann at LinkedIn. For those people that basically want to come on and basically email me, thank you for all your emails. Thank you for all your messages. So my name is nigel.mann. That's nigel.mann at hospitalityrecovery.co.uk. And that's where you can get me on email. First of all, guys, for those people who are listening and those people listening yesterday, a massive apology for our show that we do on Tuesday at 12 o'clock. I was supposed to speak to Paul Fletcher. The technology just didn't work, guys. I've got to say, and that's probably, LinkedIn and a little bit of a sort of StreamYard. But quite clearly, I'll take full responsibility for that. Quite clearly, it didn't work. For those people who are listening today, though, basically on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, whatever you're listening live, welcome. And basically for those people who are listening on the podcast, Last Man Standing. Yep, thank you for all those people that listen to that and basically listen to the headphones and Alexa and all those sort of bits all the way through. Guys, please come and say hello. Please come and say hello to us. Tell us where you're up to. But more importantly, talk us through basically your questions. One of your loads and loads of questions. So that's me sort of set up. Just before I go through and introduce Robin, sort of state the nation, really. I mean, the vaccines came out yesterday and, absolutely brilliant. I saw the woman yesterday from Coventry who had the first vaccine, and first in the world, actually. So, there's some light and some hope into hospitality. But hospitality is still recovering with the tiers and, the events industry and things like that just haven't got any revenue. So before we go on rolling, let me just bring in the team because obviously they're starting to flood through now. Let's bring in the people just to say hello. Let me just have a quick look. So who's on today? Matthew Embleton's on today. Hello all. Hello Matthew. Yeah, Matthew's joined us. So Matthew, he's going to go to a video. Who else on today? Gary's on today. Good morning, Gary. Morning, guys. Morning, Gary. How are you? You know Gary, don't you? Don't you, Robin?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Mark Hind, go and listen to my podcast. Mark has written a book, 50 Days of Lockdown. So go and have a look at that one. LinkedIn user, you need to go to the top, guys. Yeah, what's that say? Morning, guys. Yeah, LinkedIn user, you need to go to the top, trick the StreamYard and basically all the way through. Mr. Daniels, Nigel, where's the wallpaper? I just talked to Robin about this, He's just, Mark, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're decorating at the moment. Obviously, I've got green screen technology behind me. Thanks to the person who's lent me their office today, I must admit. But where's the wallpaper? I knew I was going to get that one today, It will be back, Mark. It will be back. Yeah, I'm fine to be Karen at the moment, to keep it in the bedroom, but quite clear, that's the way it is. Who else on? Nick Greaves. Gosh, I haven't seen Nick for ages. Mr. Greaves, sir, how the devil are you? Yeah, you need to come on the show, Nick Greaves. Yeah, just to give you the heads up. Trevor's here. Hi, Trevor. How are you? Who else is on? Basically, hi, Nigel. Hi, Simon Parsons. How are you? Yeah, SBE Connects. So, if you want great recruitment, basically speak to Simon and Alina. Yeah, and all the people coming through. So, basically, all the way coming through. Right, let me introduce you. Let me stop bumbling on here and quite clearly talk you through. So, who have we got on today? Yeah, Mr. Robin Williams. And before I introduce you, Robin, I'm going to show you. Karen said to me today, she said, who you speak today, Nigel? I said I'm speaking to Robin Williams. She said, Robbie Williams? I said, no, Robin Williams. So, Mr. Robin Williams, from Hotels Industry. Tell me about yourself, sir. What talk to me about Robin Williams.
Well, first of all, I'm alive.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, well, I'm a funny character, really. I started off doing aeronautical engineering many years ago for my sins, and spent most of the time working in the bar and the kitchens, and ended up going for that side of business. I did a management training with good old Trust House Forte, if we remember them, back in the time. My finance training at the Cumberland in London, and then escaped to Spain for 16 years. I did the Juan Carlos I, which was a big 5-star luxury hotel in Barcelona. Opened a couple of nice boutique luxury hotels out there, and of course ended up coming back to the UK. And since then, I've kind of been doing troubleshooting, really, sorting hotels out where they've got issues, I was a group financial controller for a couple of years, sorted them out from scratch. So yeah, I suppose I've ended up being a bit of a problem solver around in the hotel industry.
Yeah, we like problem solvers, don't we? And let me sort of set the problem here, Robin. Let me sort of, what is the problem with hospitality at the moment? I mean, the problem with hospitality is it's been a shocking year, hasn't it? I mean, 2020 is going to be those years of hospitality where 23rd of March will always be in my mind, that quite clearly we shut down businesses, and some of those businesses haven't opened, let's face it, they've had no revenue. Our events industry has got, no date at the moment, it's just, and I guess basically, all the businesses, I talk to, and I talk to a lot of businesses, people get me from consultancy and stuff like that, he's basically say, Nigel, we're lucky if we're going to survive the spring. Yeah. And we talk about sort of, food costs we're going to talk about in a minute, but, quite clearly, it's time to reset. It's time to basically speak to those businesses. They've got no cash, they've got no liquidity into the business. It's great for the rates defer, and it's great for sort of VAT at 5%. Well, 5% if you're not open is nothing. Let's face it. So now's the time with the vaccine. There's some good stuff coming in. We started the vaccine yesterday. Let's face it, that vaccine isn't going to get going until Easter. Let's face it. Throughout the summer. And then any sort of normality, sort of this sort of time, really. If anybody has any thoughts on that, by the way, just drop them in the notes below, and basically come and talk to us about that. But let's get on. Let's get on, because that's where we're at. And people are feeling anxious and sort of fear, I suppose, of basically, are they going to lose their businesses? And that, I suppose that's where your troubleshooting comes in. Very similar to myself, I get that phone call regularly. I've had 2 this week. Come and look at the businesses, come look at the balance sheet. So first of all, let's start to unravel this. Let's start to unpick this, because I want to talk to you about food cost. Yeah. And those people on this call now, who's worked for me before, think, oh, here he goes again. Your food cost, God knows what. Let's see what's actually important. First of all, Robin, yeah, I want to sort of ask you, sort of, why is it important? Why is food cost important? Just talk me through.
Well, let's face it. I mean, in a good strong business, where a restaurant certainly, and most good quality hotels, food is probably a hefty portion of your expense line. VAT and payroll are probably and perhaps maintenance are probably the big ones that will always affect how profitable you can be at the end of the month. And the beauty or the terror about food cost is there are so many issues that can be involved in the food cost process which need looking at. I mean, if you're talking about normal purchasing, at the end of the day, you can always say, well, we're going to stop buying cutlery and all the rest of it. That's it. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Food. You have to buy food. You have to have food for your clients. And you have to control that purchase, because the minute it goes out of rye, that could be a hefty whack off your cash flow and your profit line.
Yeah, I see with margins that are squeezed. Let's face it. Those people who don't work in the hospitality, and a lot of people that listen to this from universities and stuff like that, don't realise the sort of margins that quite clearly hospitality is dealing with, and they are very, very small. We can anything from sort of 0 to, God, if you're lucky, 15%. We were talking earlier and saying, what's a margin? God, those are the old days, weren't they? Yeah, those are the old days when we made profit and revenue, stuff like that. But absolutely important. So let's just talk that through, because quite clearly, for me, lots of businesses have sort of pivoted into other revenue streams, such as, sort of dark kitchens, and sort of got rid of the tables and chairs element of it, and sort of big cost of it. But obviously what you can't get rid of, as you were saying there, you can't get rid of the physical food element, because that's the thing that people eat, so let's just quite clearly have a look at that. So I would, this is from my food and beverage days, obviously, as food and beverage for Welcome Break. So we sort of looked at this when we did menu engineering and stuff like that. So let's just have a quick look at menus, because what is it about menus, Robin? I've still got my notes here, sort of poor forecasting, menu offering, not appealing, sort of poor menu design, too many items on the menu, not a balance between, low and cost items. Yeah. What's your view on that? What's your view on sort of, menus?
Well, it's all about analysis, isn't it? It's, first of all, any menu, you've got to make sure you know exactly how much theoretically that product should cost for you. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the business just don't actually sit down with a pen and paper and work through exactly what they're going to make. And even if they do, what happens if your chef's a bit light-handed with the meat or with some of the other ingredients, and And again, it's totally out of sync. So from that point of view, there's certainly an issue, but also you need to be ahead of what your clients like and what your clients want. It's no use putting a fancy item on the dish that actually you can make a good profit on if nobody actually really eats it. And vice versa, it's no use putting something that's really popular on the menu if you're actually not making any money on it. So it's all about the planning of the offering to the clients to be what they most like and what you can make most profit out of.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I mean, I lots of things with restaurants, and usually I get the call that basically says, "Nigel, we haven't made any profit this month." Yeah, and of course you go there, you do the sort of analysis, and the first thing I ask is basically from the chef is, so what are the costings? Yeah, what have you costed? Yeah, and usually I get that. Oh, it's on the desktop. It's it's in Microsoft 2013, in 2007, whatever. And quite frankly, let's face it. Some of the menus aren't even costed, which I find quite astounding, actually. Yeah, or it's done by the the finance controller. Yeah, or it's done by another person. And then you go down the lines of sort of when did you change the prices? And all of a sudden you get into that sort of genre and. 10 minutes in, you start to realise why, the chef's made up the prices. It's quite clear what he thinks is in the market. Yeah. You start going down the EPOS analysis and basically, what have we sold this month? And the chef said, I think I've done really well on steaks, or I've done really well on fish, or Chateaubriand, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, you start to that analysis. So, it's not surprising that people basically go through. So the menu for me is absolutely important. You're absolutely right. Yeah. What about, I want to question you about purchasing, Robin. Yeah. Okay. Because for me, that's where, apart from the sort of menu planning, the sort of putting through commodities and products through different dishes and stuff like that, sort of menu engineering. Yeah, purchasing. What about purchasing? Just talk to me about purchasing, because that's important to me.
Well, I mean, the art of good purchasing within any company is not to put all your eggs in one basket. The number of companies I've seen where they have, I always use this supplier for my fruit and veg. I always use this guy for my meat. And yeah, they may be a good supplier. They may be a decent product quality. But at the end of the day, they're out to make as much money as possible, the same as you are. So it's always good to have at least 3 options available with the different types of produce, like the food, the greens, and all the rest of it, and just keep comparing it. Get price lists out once a week, and just go through it and just check it over and make sure that the guy's not actually trying to take you for a ride. I set up something with a hotel just the other week, just a simple spreadsheet where they could have a line for each of the suppliers across for each product and just see quickly which was the cheapest that week. You may not want to go with that, but at least you can go back to your supplier and say, well, wait a minute, why is so-and-so charging me £10 less than you for that steak or whatever. It gives you the power to talk to the supplier and get a better price, even if you end up going with your regular supplier. And also the most important thing about purchasing is be careful of how much sales you've got. You may say, oh, well, I'm going to stock up my kitchen because I'm hoping to have sales. Look at your forecast. If you're only forecasting a certain amount of sales for the next week, it's not worth buying all that food. If in worst case scenario, it's better trying to take something off the menu so that you can keep your stocks down and keep your purchases down than trying to stock up for everything and then not actually sell any of it and have it going out the door in the rubbish bin.
Yeah, I think you're quite right, Rob. I mean, purchasing is basically procurement. It's basically a massive organisation. They'll do that for you. But we're also speaking across the sectors to sort of small cafe owners, God knows what. Absolutely vital, guys, for me, that basically you get your inventory and your purchasing absolutely right, especially on your perishable items. Yeah, we talk about past stocks, and just for clarity, what past stocks are basically, how much business have you got going through against what you've actually got in stock. I go to businesses and you sort of get there and you go, pasta dish. Yeah, how many pasta have we done, and what's the past stock? And people say, I don't know. Then you get to the dry stores and there's 20 million tons of pasta that quite clearly, not going to go out of date, but that is your cash flow. So, important there, guys, is what Ron was just saying there, detailed specifications for me, fixed versus basically stabilizing cost. Yeah. Get your purchasing, and I'm sure you agree with this, Robin, get your purchasing policy absolutely right with your suppliers, because those suppliers out there are begging for your business at the moment. They really are, on some good quality terms, and retros. I mean, I certainly mentioned retros at the moment because quite clearly retros are, for those people who don't know what retro is, by the way, it's the amount of volume you do. So in beer, for example, it would be a fixed price per 9 litres, or brewers barrels. Those people who don't know what a brewer's barrel is, go and Google it. It's not the show for this, but that is the sort of deals you're going to get in the retro deals in your suppliers. So past docs are pretty important. Also, invoicing, Robin. How many times do we see a double invoice go in, or Robin smiling at me because quite clearly, how many times do we see that, or an invoice processed the wrong nominal, or just talk me through that. Does that happen?
Oh, it happens regularly. I mean, the important about invoicing is that you document your purchases. If you document what you're expecting to be invoiced for, and you check it off against what you've actually had delivered, then when the invoice comes, whether you're being ripped off or not. And unfortunately, and yes, there are a lot of good systems out there that allow you to do that more electronically. And if you can afford them, then it's certainly the way to go, because on the long run, it'll keep your admin costs down. However, even if you've not got those systems, you need to have the strict reckoning, as it were, to actually say, well, yes, I am going to write down what I'm buying and what they're telling me it's going to cost, and I am then going to make sure they deliver it all. And that way, when I get the invoice, I'll know that there's not an extra item on there. I know and any financial controller will have good housekeeping as far as invoice is concerned. I mean, a lot of the time, I with small hotels, I have a special list that I get them to fill in the invoices, etc. And the first thing I put on it is this invoice the same as another one on the list? Because the number of times, something gets duplicated on a list somewhere, and then it's not until you come to do a reconciliation later on in the year with the suppliers. But yeah, and the other way around, if you are buying stuff like Tupperwares, tinfoil, all that sort of stuff, I mean, I'm quite strict on making sure they go to a disposable account, or like operational costs account, not the food cost. Because if you want to win the trust of your chef, you need to be straight with them. You need to say, look, I'm only going to charge you on the food cost for your food. Make sure you tell me what's not food. Same as I'll say, well, you've got to get your percentage because I'm treating you nicely.
Yeah, I think you're right, Robin, there. I mean, basically, how many times have we sat across the table? I've sat across from a boardroom director sort of, regional sort of role, and being the GM. And usually these meetings, aren't they, are set basically across the table, and the GM comes in and bumbles his way through why he's got a good business or a bad business, and 9 times out of 10 doesn't know why. But then you start looking at the food costs, and then you start stripping out invoices, and to disposables, or it's to beverage, or it's to X, Y, and Z. All of a sudden, the problem isn't there, it's in the process. So what I'd say to guys is basically, guys, get your invoices right, get your information right, and certainly before you get to a finance review, make sure that information is absolutely. How many times we've gone in? I always remember I went into a meeting where we made £1 million, we'd hit the plan, and all of a sudden we hadn't taken off the VAT. So I got that phone call just before I went to a meeting, and by the way, boss, it's 20% less. I've got to now explain that, so quite clearly, make sure you got the right information in there, and none of those schoolboy errors. I sort of want to move you on, Robin, to sort of receiving, because this is important, isn't it? I mean, it's not the emotive subject, but it's absolutely important for caterers, for hospitalities, for the pub sector, any sector you're in. And I guess basically is 9 times out of 10, and I used to do this in my regional days, is basically just go on the back door and do a backdoor check. Is all the food coming in? We're talking about invoices, 4 to 5 grand's worth of invoices. It's so easy, isn't it, for the perishable items, sort of, missing those tomatoes, those onions, those, and somebody doesn't check it. Sign here, pal. Middle of service, sign here, pal. And all of a sudden, you can't check it because quite clearly, the lorry driver's gone and half your delivery's missing. So, that's important, So just talk us through the sort of process, Robin, just very, very quickly, sort of, what should we be looking for on the back door?
Well, it's all about training the people who are going to receive those goods, isn't it? I mean, if the chef who hasn't got a clue ends up taking the order, then even in the best hopes, he may miss something. So when I mean, and it's not just about the number of items. It's about looking. You check that all the items are there, obviously, the basics of it. But especially, like you say, with perishables, there's nothing worse than getting a box of tomatoes and you open it up later on and find out half of them are not worth to actually use them. Is the delivery refrigerated to the correct level? I mean, these are basic health and safety standards as well. It's not just about food cost. It's about keeping within the law. But it's amazing the number of companies that don't do the temperature checks on the lorry, don't do the temperature checks on the food, don't check the quality of the article that you're actually receiving, as well as then checking the quantity you've actually received, and then making sure it goes where it's supposed to go. It's no good receiving a meat delivery and then leaving it in the corridor for half an hour so it can perish, when it should go straight into the fridges where will maintain its quality for as long as possible. Because if the delivery is handled badly, that product could be going out in your bins at the end of a week instead of going out onto the table.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it? My God, my pacemaker's been going 10 to the dozen there. You just mentioned basically not taking food delivery. You know, it's a due diligence defence, isn't it? I mean, come on, you know, it's you know, come on, you know, those are the basics, aren't they? You know, people who aren't taking temperature records, you know, down to -18, -15, you know, 8 degrees, stuff like that. Yeah, more for you. I mean, if you're not doing that, well, quite clearly, you know, you get that phone call and. Yeah, you know, it's for me that's a non-negotiable, to be honest. Yeah, people who work for me before will know exactly how I feel about that. Yeah, and how animated I would get with you very, very quickly. Cool. Okay, so I mean, storage for me. I'll quickly run through this one. So it's all about basically, you know, sort of, you know, where do you put it? So it comes to the business, and you know, the number of fridges we aren't see that's locked. Yeah, you know, the bad storage we get. You know that, you know, first in first out, the FIFO. You know, all the way through. Failure to basically cover stocks, poor sanitation of products, yeah. No periodic reports of dead stock, yeah. You know, so how long have we had that thing in our dry stores? How long have we had that thing in our, you know, we check date codes and stuff like that, you know. And you talked about wastage and, you know, vermin and stuff like that, and sort of, you know, wasting products, yeah. So written records, you know, all the way through. That's one to sort of box off them before we get to some questions and some sort of comments that are going to come through. I'll talk about sort of processing. I've sort of classified this one as sort of preparation and processing. Yeah, you know, so chefs are chefs. I mean, chefs are very creative. Yeah, okay. You find 9 times out of 10 they like sauces and allergens and stuff like that. I get it, but they like to be creative. They like to basically, you know, they're not very good at the processing for. I'm generalising here, some are very, very good, by the way. But 9 times out of 10, most of the chefs just don't understand the sort of records, the processing, the food cost, you know, and they're more operators, is what I'm saying, rather than basically like yourself, Robin, food controllers. So, you know, for me, how do we control the wastage? How do we control the sort of big subject? I know, but you know, if you can sort of put that down to us.
Well, I mean, there's 2 types of wastage to start with, isn't there? There's the wastage that's your trimmings, well, actually 3 times. Use your trimmings and all the bits that you sort of like discard as part of the production of the process. There's the stuff that for some reason goes off or is not of a quality you can actually use it. And then the third one is what comes off at the plate at the end of the service when the client hasn't actually eaten what they wanted. Now, whether they haven't eaten it because it was too much, in which case you need to look at your plate sizes because you're wasting money there, or whether they haven't eaten it because they didn't actually like it, which means they're going to put a bad review, which means it's not going to increase your sales, is something that really needs to be looked at. And the number of places that actually haven't got any regard for what's coming back from the restaurant is incredible. And on the trimming side of it, I mean, if you have a well-trained chef, he'll know how to peel a potato, how to cut a good joint of meat, etc. But you'll find you'll always get surprises. I mean, I work with a company that have like electronic scales. They take a picture of the food, you weigh it, and you tell them what it is, whether it's trimmings, whether it's plate waste, whatever it is. And the number of chefs that then come back having watched the video and say, is he really throwing that away? Or why are we throwing all those items away from that buffet when we could have put them onto something else? It's the awareness more than anything, both from the chefs who are doing the work, knowing what they should be doing, and also from whoever's in charge to actually see what's actually being wasted, both front of house and back of house.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I think the wastage is a killer, isn't it? I mean, we're making margins, as I sort of said at the top of the sort of broadcast, really sort of anything between 2, 3, 5%, 15%. You can really eat into those margins very, very quickly. One of the biggest areas I've got, that basically, certainly to my regional days, and certainly my chefing days actually, kitchen days, is how many times have you walked to a kitchen? Yeah, especially at breakfast time. Yeah, you've got a big buffet going on. Yeah, we've got the rationale going 10 to the dozen, and you walk in, you go, guys, how many are we catering for today? And the chef turns around and says, I don't know. I ain't got a clue. How many inclusive you got? How many non-inclusive? What's your pickup? How many are you actually catering for, chef? How many is that buffet for the conference? What's the banqueting for? How many are we banqueting for this week, chef? Yeah, and they literally don't know. Yeah, they're going in blind. So the question then to ask yourself is basically, so what are you cooking for, chef? Are you just basically mass producing, 10 shelf rationale, 6 shelf rationale, and you go in there and you see loads of sausages, loads of bacon, 9 o'clock, yeah, and you can't use it because the product is absolutely knackered. Yeah, so overproduction is the one for me, I guess. Not cooking in small batches, yeah, so sorry, not cooking in big batches, cooking in small batches, and failure to basically follow specs and adding the extra sauces and portion control and things like that. Chefs love to feed you, don't they? Yeah, feed you, fatten you. Yeah, so and quite clearly those have all been tested out. So let's just go to some questions, yeah, before I come back to training and sort of how we get all this trained in with managers and stuff like that, because I know you've got solution moments. So let me just basically bring up Julia says, yeah, love it. Okay, I think she loves it. Yeah, the basics of costing a menu, popular items with the most profit. Yeah, great to see some sound common sense. Yeah, any comments on that, Robin?
No, just thank you.
No, yeah, okay. You do talk, Robin.
But it is about common sense. At the end of the day, a lot of it is about common sense. But unfortunately, when you're in the mix, sometimes common sense kind of disappears out the window, which is a shame, really.
Yeah, it does, and the most profitable, yeah, is great. How many times do we have to brief? Well, some people don't actually, yeah, but how many of the team actually know what's most profitable? You can sell a Chateaubriand, yeah, for 40, 50 quid, where quite clearly, you think you're doing the turnover, yeah, where quite clearly a bowl of soup might be more profitable. Yeah, so it's about knowing your business. It's about knowing what's on the menu, but more important, it's about getting that training in and basically making sure the staff know all this. So, Juliet, valid comments. Matthew's got a question. It's a big one, this one, so I might have to look over the top. Yeah. Oh, there you go. It's not so bad. Yeah. Okay. Saying basically, when's working out your sales forecast? Yeah. What allowance do you add? Usage to 100 levels, and when ordering for the account, basically waste increase in sales. So I guess what he's asking there, Robin, is basically is what is the stretch? What is the sort of what is the buffer? Any ideas?
Well, that all depends on the operation, doesn't it? I mean, if you're a small operation and you've got your margins tight, then the stretch needs to be the sort of like very minimal, because you can't afford to stretch that. If it's a big operation with thousands of units, then the stretch will be much higher. And you've also got to plan your stretch from a point of view of what else you might be able to. I mean, if you, like you say, with the breakfasts, yeah, you might not know exactly how many breakfasts you're going to be using, but if you know if you cook it in the correct way, then you could perhaps use that for a sausage casserole later on in the day, or it's all about knowing how much stretch is a wasted stretch and how much is actually something you can use again in another format. And it is about forecasting. We'll talk about forecasting in a minute, but forecasting is an art in itself, and it's where a lot of places fall down because they just don't take enough time to actually look at the forecast.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I think basically for those breakfast items, use them in your pizzas, use them in your pasta dishes, use them in, cut your bacon up into lardons, cut them through, basically reuse them. Yeah, obviously you can only reheat once, of course, so all the way through. But good question there, Matthew. Good question. Robin, let me just take one more question, then we'll move on. Yeah, let me just take a Julia question. He said, "Look at the wastage that is returned on the menu's plate, the customer's plate." Yeah, okay. Absolutely right there, Julian. I totally agree with that. If you're a good manager and managers, in the hospitality industry, stand at your hot plate, have a look, and quite clearly see what's coming back. Yeah, empty plates. Yeah, create sanity. Yeah, and quite clearly if you're hitting the mark. Yeah, and look through your EPOS as well. Basically get your theoretical GP. Yeah, just for the sake of. This is basically theoretical GP, is basically taking all your costs, etc., into your sort of sales and seeing what comes out from each line, and basically that will generate down the line onto a theoretical GP. So that's one's good as well, but always good. Okay, so before we move on, Robin, hang on, Matthew just coming with a question. Matthew says that's what I tell the wife. There you go. Cheeky comment from Matthew. There you go. Yeah. But no, I mean, Robin, I just talk about training. People want basically a 60 plan training. I've still got my 63 plan training as it is now into there. So basically you can DM me for that and God knows what. But Robin, you run, lots of good comments on there, lots of gold out there, but you actually train this in, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment I'm running a series of 10 seminars once a month on different topics, and just coming up on the 16th is the food cost seminar, and basically it's going to be like a crash course in food cost management. So it'll take you through the whole process from purchasing, planning, procedure, and sales. It'll be, but I also always, when I do my training, I always like to make sure that people think about their training of their people, and also about what systems and simple administration they can use to make sure it all comes together, because it's a combination of everything, isn't it? It's like you said, the chef might be very good at producing a meal, but if he doesn't have somebody backing him up who's actually the more administrative type, who actually does a menu costing, or actually makes sure the delivery is okay, etc., he's on a hiding to nothing. So I sort of globalize the whole thing, almost, yes, like a crash course seminar. And these are sort of seminars that I'll do también independently for hotels and groups of hotels when required. But I've put these ones public to sort of to benefit more of the independent hotel that can't afford to do a 10-person course or something like that.
Yeah, brilliant. And you're the person to talk to about food costs. There's a little bit. I love this. There's a little bit of sort of take going on in the sort of feed. We'll call these guys out. A little schoolboy area, basically little and often is the theme that's going to go through. Yeah, and Simon Parsons saying, there you go, that's what I tell my wife as well. So a little bit of sort of little sort of banter. The boys are having a bit of laugh there, so I will call those out. And enjoy your little banter there, guys. But you're quite right, little and often throughout the operation. And just going back to some more serious stuff, Robin, great courses there. Robin, Matthew mentioned forecasting. Yeah. Okay, and I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about sort of what's the benefits, why is it important? It's a bane of all banes, isn't it? Can we have a 3-month forecast? Can we have a 10-month forecast? Can we have a 15-month forecast? A forecast on the forecast? A forecast for the forecast? And just talk me through what is it? What is forecasting, and why is it important now?
I always use the simile that when I was perhaps in my younger days, I'd never hit the road without having looked at the road map and thinking, right, I'm going to go down this road, go down the other one, and I'll get to my destination. Well, these days you have the GPS. You say your little machine there will tell you there's roadworks on this road. Take a turn here or take a turn there. And for me, the forecast has to be the same thing. You have a budget, you know where you want to get to, but there will always be alterations to the route. And if you have a good forecast, which is a day-by-day forecast, analyzed in detail, then you know when you're going wrong and when you need to take a diversion, when you need to look at another part of sales, where you need to go. And some people say, oh, day by day forecasting, it must be a nightmare. But it's not. If you get into it, if you have like a 365 plan there, and you put in your KPIs, and you put it and you start to put in what your business is expected, then it kind of almost grows automatically. And you start to think, well, actually, that day it's a bank holiday. So yeah, let's tweak it here and let's tweak it the other. And once you're comparing that to your actual sales and seeing where you went wrong almost, then you start to get better and better. And as you get better and better, the route becomes more clearer. And as he said, yeah, the forecasting, you actually know how many breakfasts you're expecting to do on that day, or how many dinners you're expecting to do. And yeah, you might get it wrong one day, but the question is, why did you get it wrong? What happened that day to actually improve the sales or not improve the sales, make them worse? What happened? Because that's what teaches you how your business is working and helps you to control it more easily.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I think basically forecasting and knowing your business, especially this time in a pandemic, we used to do a 3 months forecast, and people talk to me now about daily forecast is what you're saying there, isn't it? It's just almost daily forecasting. How many people got coming through my doors? What is it basically? How many bedrooms have I got? How many people are looking through my F&B? How many people got in my restaurant? How many people are going to take away? And that all information is absolute vital, isn't it?
Yeah,
yep.
And it is about that. A good forecast is built from parameters. It's not built from looking at and say, I'll probably do about 300 quid that day. No, it's because you know roughly how many guests you've got in house, what their capture rate normally is, how many outside guests you normally have on a Wednesday, what the average spend normally is on food and beverage. And if you put all those parameters into a spreadsheet, hey, presto, you've got a sales figure that you're expecting. So it's all about the detail. But once you've got the detail in there, it actually becomes quite easy to manage, because the average rate's going up a bit. Fine, we'll change it across the future because we're doing better. But the more important thing is also to be reporting daily on those KPIs. It's all very well saying the forecast is this, but you should have a revenue report which actually tells you, well, yesterday your average spend on food was higher than you were forecasting, or your number of covers you did in external covers was lower, or your capture rate. It's all about forecasting, analysing what happened, and forecasting again.
Yes, I keep saying, especially sort of this day and age where cash is key, isn't it? And sort of liquidating into the business, and most of those businesses are looking to survive, and even when they're shut, I mean, we should be basically forecasting, for when we open, and food cost, and looking at your menus and stuff like that. So absolutely vital that we actually do that. I sort of mentioned pivoting there really quickly into cash flow. Yeah, I mean, most businesses, yes, they've yeah, sad times where some of them won't survive. Some hotels will not open. Yeah, some of them basically. We went through this glut of open of hotels, and everyone had a hotel. And I think that's going to slow down. That's just a personal view, but I generally do. So cash flow. Just talk us through cash flow, Robin. What do you mean by cash flow?
Well, cash flow is what you'll end up in the bank at any one time, isn't it? And whenever I sit down to do a cash flow, I take into account two major things. First of all is a good revenue forecast, because there's no way you're going to be able to forecast what money you might have in the bank unless you have a good idea of how much money you're going to be taking in. And that's where a lot of places fall down, because they're not doing a good revenue forecast. But the other one is, when I sit down to do a cash flow, I look at the last 12 months. I look at the costs that have gone through the business for the last 12 months, and I split them down. I have the utilities, how much roughly is utilities a month, how much is this, what the food invoices were, what this was, what the VAT, when it's going out, and roughly how much it was, because that almost gives you a plan of what you need to do forward. I mean, if you know that roughly your food invoices is going to be sort of 30% of your food revenue, in 30 days time, then you pop your food revenue into your cash flow at the top as like a title, and you just plan it right 30 across. So you almost build it based on what the revenue is giving you and what the past has told you, and from there you can start to tweak it and say, well, actually, is that cost really something I need to take into account now, or can I postpone it? Can I cancel this contract? Can I look at this? And then when you start to see the bottom line and you see where the issues are, is when you can start to plan, right, well, if I talk to that supplier, perhaps I can delay their payment another 30 days, and that will just take my cash flow back into the positive. It might allow me to pay the wages at the end of the month. But you should be planning it, and you should be looking at it. The worst thing you can do is go into a supplier and just say, I can't pay you, and not being able to say, well, actually, look, times are hard. I can pay you next month. Please give me a thing. I planned it all out. I can control it, but I want to play the guys, you know. And so it's the planification. Sorry, the planning. Speaking into my Spanish again. But planning that really helps you to be able to talk to the suppliers, deal with the contracts, deal with the expenses, to actually say, right, how am I going to control my cash flow?
Yeah, you're quite right. I think we all know the term, the bank is broken. Yeah, you know, how many times have we got in and said to the finance controller, I need to this project, I need to that project, I need to open here, I need to do this. And the FC or the finance director has said, no, Nigel, you can't do that. Yeah, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, we're into forecasting, into basically getting revenue through the door. What is the worst thing, Robin, people can do when they do forecast cash flow? Yeah, what is the sort of what is the negatives they can do? Is it quality? Is it what is it?
The worst they can do is just assume that things carry on as they always do. Too many people pushing a forecast, and they don't actually consider the periodicity of things. It's like, for example, your insurance bill. If you're not planning when your insurance bill is going to come in, it comes in and it hits you like a bullet. You know, you have to take into account when things are going to come out and plan for that. And if it means that really, to make your life easier, you'd rather pay a direct debit on your insurance and 1% interest, but at least you know that every month you've got it covered and it's not going to give you a heart attack, then it may be the best option for you these days. If not, then as long as you're clear on when things are going to go out, you won't get any surprises.
Yeah, Robin, I've had the benefit working for corporations, big corporations, blue chip companies, FTSE companies. I've had the privilege of working for independents as well. I'm working for myself, fun enough. Yeah, you know, obviously doing my consultancy bit at the moment, sort of getting that in. But you know, I do feel for these standalone operations, you know, sort of a recruiter, for example, you know, that quite clearly relies on jobs and relies on commission and sort of getting those in. And some of those businesses are burning cash, you know, savings. Let's face it, you know, we're sleepwalking, aren't we, into a headwind here? You know, it's just, and the banks aren't lending. Yeah, you know, if you get to the bank these days, and we all know what the bank's like, you know, when it's great, it's great. But when it gets a bit choppy and the waters get choppy, that those loans get pulled back in. So, you know, any views on that? Any views that we can help them to sort of push them through?
Well, for the hotelier, I mean, it's been difficult. There have been some grants and some C-bills and some different loans and things. The importance is to have a plan, because there are a lot of investors out there who, if you have a stable plan for the future, they will actually still be willing to invest in you. And I'm not talking about banks. I as part of my business, I pull together associates from all sorts of areas of the business, sales managers, revenue managers, people who do financing, because within my business, within my job, as it were, helping independent hotels, I think it should be me who can say, oh, you have a problem here, I know somebody who can help. And talking with a lot of these finance suppliers, they say, well, yes, there are a lot of people out there who are willing to invest, even in the hospitality industry, as long as you have a good 5-year plan, a good idea of how you're going to get out of this and where you're going to be in the future, so that you can prove you're going to pay them back. And it's about, again, it's about planning, it's about forward thinking, and it's about being sure about, you can never be sure 100% what's going to happen. We never knew a year ago that COVID was going to happen. But when you're in a situation, to be able to react quickly and say, actually, this is what I need to do now, but plan it ahead, not just try and live day by day, hand to mouth, because it's the worst that can happen.
Yeah, I think you're quite right to know your numbers. There's companies out there, isn't there, that basically can help with staffing these days. You know, can get sort of specialists in that can help you for a short period of time. Well,
this is it. Most of the associates I work with are highly professional people who will give their services to an independent hotel for a portion of their time. Now that means that instead of taking on a sales manager, for example, on a full-time job that's costing you a lot of money every week, every month, you can take on one of these people, and they will give you the professional advice you need, do the professional bits and pieces, get your admin staff who are cheaper to do all the legwork, as it were, and it saves you money on your cash flow, and it also means actually you've got more effective. I do the same in financial control. I do that for independent hotels, but I will do the nitty-gritty stuff. I will put in the controls. I will put in everything, make sure they get a decent reporting. But as far as the sort of like the basics are concerned, I make sure that they pass it on to somebody within the business, so that they're not spending a large amount of money per hour on somebody putting invoices into a system when it's not necessary. And that's what we believe in the future will help independent hotels to actually improve their profitability.
I guess that's one of the reasons you said hotel synergies. Yeah, it's just to basically help in the problem.
Yeah.
We've got these problems where we take big financial controllers on, can't afford them, and most of that can basically be put out to yourself and basically look after our business, and quite clearly gives that financial information back as an interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've spent the past couple of years doing troubleshooting, and I'd go into a hotel that perhaps hadn't had a financial controller for 5 months. I'd sort out their financial problems, put in all the controls on revenue, costs, etc., and then it'd almost be a case of, well, there's too much of me now for you, and I would move on, but I'd carry on doing their accounts for a couple of months while they found somebody on a lower scale to take it over. And after the last project, I just thought, well, actually, why not just do it permanently for hotels, help them all out, and have almost a supply for various independent hotels, because it's not a full-time job being a financial controller in an independent hotel.
No, the financial controller would tell you it is, Robin, but quite clearly it is not. I've used that before. This is not a full-time job, guys. This is basically, just tell me what I need to know. Anyway, another subject. I'll get into trouble on that one, so I'll edit that one out. No problem at all. Yeah, cool. Okay, we've got 15 minutes. Next 10 minutes. Let me just grab some questions. Because there's some good questions coming in. So basically, Mark says, I do my canteen menu weekly along with our banqueting offering for that week, and control the food costs. My food cost target is, what's that, 15, is it? 15 to 18%, which is very, very tight. Okay, so you're talking about your food cost, just for people who watch this back at universities and dissertations and stuff like that. Two things that come out of this, guys. One is food cost, one is gross profit, and we always work them on the net figures, for VAT. So divide your cost into your net revenue, and quite clearly get your food cost. The remaining is your gross profit. So basically, we're talking the targets there between 15 and 18%. Yeah, gosh, that's very tight, isn't it? Yeah,
Well, I would say the key word there is banqueting. I mean, I've worked in hotels where they've had a food cost of 11% on their banqueting function, which has allowed them to almost fund their restaurants and the rest of it, to be able to achieve a more sort of like 25% food cost. So the banqueting has always been the goal, the winner, as it were, as far as food cost is concerned.
Yeah, I think it's hospitality is this time of year. You wearing a Christmas jumper there, Robin. We're wrapping our hands. We're wrapping our hands on. We're basically, it's Christmas. It's ka-ching, isn't it? Let's face it. I mean, I'm not giving any trade secrets there. It's our most profitable time of the year. Especially with weddings and stuff like that. The restaurants just don't cut it in the money terms. But certainly your banqueting and your sort of weddings, your functions, your Christmas functions. Those are the monies that basically get the ka-ching back into the business. But which is very tight. I would totally agree with that. 15, 18%. Depends on what you're charging as well, of course. Depends on basically, if it's a £40 plate per head, or it's basically, a £2.99 soup at Press or something like that. Yeah, so cool. Yeah. So thanks for that. Basically, Simon's got a question. Yeah. It's really difficult to plan as a support to the sector when the sector is struggling to clearly plan. Yeah. Okay, you're absolutely right, Simon. It's absolutely shocking this year without basically, getting into the sort of nitty gritty of, I think the hospitality industry has been treated badly this year. We talk about Kate and all the sort of guys that represent us on sort of boards. We talk about the hotel minister. We're not going to get it, but quite clearly who's basically Oliver Dowden is basically our voice in the sports and digital department. And that is our sports, basically our voice at the sector. Yeah, so it's difficult to plan. You're absolutely right. As a supplier, I feel for you, Simon. Simon's in recruitment, so it's been hit. The sector's been really hit, hasn't it? It's clearly off to plan. Simon's last question before we wrap up. Yeah, does Robin think basically businesses will look at subcontracting their recruitment as a way to save money moving forward? Yeah.
I think they should have always been subcontracting their recruitment. I think it's one of those core subjects where you need somebody with high expertise to find you the right person, but obviously you can't afford to have that person on your payroll permanently. So something like subcontracting for those sort of areas is the ideal solution. When you need recruitment, you have an expert you can rely on who knows your business, who knows the best way to find your candidates. And when you're not, then obviously you're not paying for somebody just to be sat in an office sort of looking good, which no offense to anybody who's in recruitment.
Yeah, no, you're quite right.
I believe, yeah.
I'll talk about some because I know Simon really, really well. There was some recruitment agencies that just want to do you for a fee. Let's face it, just want to get your CV out there. And there's good people like Simon's from SPE Connect that quite clearly, know the hospitality industry, know the people, get to know them on a one-to-one. I know Simon really, really well from sort of Coffee Club, and sort of he does a lot to support people out there in the business as well as being a recruiter. Yeah, and that means that means a lot to me. That means a lot to the business, and quite clearly, that's the way to go forward. So Simon, hope that answers your question, sir. Yeah, keep doing the good work. Keep supporting that Coffee Club on the Monday, and obviously the business will come back. Simon is the answer to that. Fletcher King says, is it a continuous process? Is it cheaper to internalise? Yeah, on the long term. Yeah. One for you, Robin, I think. Yep.
What, externalise what? But internalise? Oh, recruitment.
Yes. Is it a continuous process, or is it cheaper to initialise it, on the long term? Yeah.
It depends, because there are always peaks and troughs in the industry, aren't there? I mean, an example, back in Spain, the summertime was, Easter was when you had to recruit hundreds of people. You had to get the right sort of people, and then it sort of tailed off. I think within... a good recruiter, for example, will probably be across several industries, and he will if he's working with several companies as a contract worker, he'll know how to organize his time to not only be good for the industry, for each of his clients, but be good for his own business. Whereas somebody who's only on one company can only do what that company wants at that time. I mean, as far as recruitment's concerned, I think anybody who's in recruitment is a full-time position in a hotel would probably have to be a trainer as well, so that when they're not recruiting, they're training the people who are on the team, because training something which unfortunately often gets left behind, especially when costs have to be cut, when actually it's one of the major things that has to be dealt with constantly, because that will increase your sales, it'll increase your control over costs, and it unfortunately gets left by the side.
Okay, hopefully that basically answers your question. A few more basically, LinkedIn user, again, you need to go to the top there and just click on StreamYard for next time. But item rotation, a key element, cost control for your business. Totally agree with that, I think, wouldn't you? Yeah. First in, first out. Basically, push those items to the back. How many times have we basically seen those items that basically come into the crisps and stuff like that? Just go and basically put them especially into retail. I'm talking about there. Chris always go out on a Saturday, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, always their date goes out on a Saturday. Yeah, I don't know if you know that. Yeah, there you go. Quick tip for you. Yeah, just going back to my retail days. So that's the key one there. Just comes to the end. So menu design. Yeah, fate to complete. Yeah, to get food costs right when it's very, very tight. Absolutely right. Absolutely right on that one. So Robin, some good stuff today, sir. Yeah, okay. Thanks for those tips and some good comments there. I mean, email address for you, is that the right email address?
Yep, r.williams with 2 L's at hotelsynergies.com.
That's, just repeat that for you. That's r.williams@hotelsynergies.com. And the website, sir, there is a website for you, which I'm struggling to get on for you. But there you go. Got it on for you. Yeah.
There you go. www.hotelsynergies.com.
Okay, Robin, been absolutely great having the show today. Always a pleasure, sir. Yeah, especially with that Christmas jumper, I must admit. Yeah, and the famous picture behind you. Guys, absolutely great. We'll be back next Tuesday at 12 o'clock with Hospitality Recovery. And obviously back with next week with Mark Daniels, funny enough, on Hospitality Hints next Wednesday. If you want to join us for those. So just leaves me to say, Robin, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your golden content. Hopefully the listeners are basically, enjoy that sort of content. And we'll talk shortly. Thank you very much, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.